um, yeah, so like I've been at Facebook since February of last year, and I work on automated speech recognition, meaning that like my job requires me to consume audio data and then transcribe that to text. So, like to fill in some of the gaps here, I started in 2013. I was pretty enthusiastic about technology, and I participated in like STAB. Do you guys call it STAB, or is it the Tech Council these days?
Yeah, it's called the Tech Council.
Yeah, so like I was part of that. I was pretty enthusiastic about like being in tech, and I was the convener for Electronics Club in my second year. I was the manager of the Web and Coding Club in my third year, as well as I think I was a DAM mentor in third year. And in my final year, I was an ICE implementer as well as the department DAMP head. Like we still have DAMP and ICMP programs, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yes. We do have them, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I mean, I was pretty interested in the department and just taking up responsibilities here and there, and also kind of being connected to tech. In the meanwhile, I did an internship in my second year at IST Austria. I got to work on like some theoretical side of CS, and then in my third year, I took up a research internship at Adobe Labs in Bangalore, and then like things brought me to my master's here. So like when I started my master's, I was also like pretty convinced that I'll be doing a PhD as a follow-up of the master's, but somehow the stars didn't align, and like I did not pursue that path. So maybe like I can go into that as well, why I decided not to do a master's, and sorry, why I decided not to do a PhD and just graduated with a master's. So like I mean that's the overview of how things were for me when I was at IIT Bombay, and yeah, it's like I mean this
So,
is new to me, so yeah. Does anyone have any questions?
when did you seriously decide that you had to go for higher studies? Like, in which year did you realize that you didn't want to take up a job and go for higher studies?
Yeah, so I think even in the beginning, I had somewhat of a like research motivation to do, right? Like, so courses are there, but I always was thinking that I'll do some sort of a research and try out new things. So, like, both my internships in the second and third year were actually research internships. They were not like proper software engineer internships. So, I think even from the second year onwards, I was yeah, I mean, I have had a lot of interest switches. I think in the second year, I was interested in security for some reason. Then I think I was also interested in networks, computer networks. But then towards the final year, I think my interests aligned with machine learning. So like my third year internship was in machine learning at Adobe Labs. My BTP and R&D projects were in actually image processing and natural language processing. So like I guess it's a pretty natural thing. Like as you do more courses, you like understand your interests better, and like it's natural for things to evolve and get aligned in a certain direction. So uh, yeah, like so if you guys are not sure what you want to do right now, it's perfectly fine. So I mean, you don't have to make a decision right away. Just for more context, like so how many of you guys are like first, second, third, fourth year students, and most of looking at the roll numbers, I think most of you guys are from CS, except probably a few batch change
Yes.
people or people who have their names here who I cannot tell. Hmm. Like, I mean, someone who has context about these people, and Tanay, maybe can you just give me an overview of what's
Yeah.
the distribution of people here, a rough
Uh,
distribution?
mostly, mostly the students are from the CSE department, and equal number of people from the second, third, and fourth year, I would say.
Okay, that's pretty diverse mix. Okay, so I think I can keep that in my mind. And okay, no, then actually good. Like fourth year students, if you are like decided on what you want to do, like if you want to choose a particular stream, then good for you. People like younger students from second, third year, if you're not yet decided, then like don't worry about it. Something will work out. Cool. So yeah, I guess like with that done, maybe I can start through some of these questions, and let's see how much we can go through here. Uh, should I share my screen, or like is it fine if I I guess it's fine.
It's yeah, sure,
I can keep the
it's fine.
questions in the background and just talk to you here. Cool. Yeah. So I try to divide the questions into like roughly three, four sections. The first one I was thinking is we'll go through why higher education, benefits of higher education, and how COVID affects all of this. Following that, maybe we can go through choosing through MS versus PhD. After that, like experiences of doing a master's in the US, how does the stress level and difficulties vary? Following that, we can cover jobs and placements, and we can finish up by what you guys can do right now, like maybe some topical questions like what CPI you should have and how to align your internships. Okay, so yeah, let's kick off with the first section. Why higher education, benefits of higher education. Yeah, so I think the first question is how and when did you get the idea of studying further? I think we already talked about that I was in my second year when I thought that like fine, these courses are fun. Like there's always very breakneck competition in the CS department to get a good CPI and to like stay at the top. But like a lot of these courses are structured around the course content that we have. Depending on the professor, the course content might get more open-ended, but I think for the most part, for the most courses, they're more or less aligned, and you guys don't get to experience any new research or like open-ended things, right? By any chance, did you guys have the pleasure of being taught by Professor Diwan? I guess for 213.
Yeah, the sophomores are being taught this year by Professor Devan.
For the second year data structures course.
Yeah, the data structures course.
Interesting. How is the course progressing so far? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, I have to say, but it's good. Like it's harder than the other courses. It's obviously harder than the other courses, but it's good. Like it's enjoyable.
I see. Yeah, like he taught us data structures in the second year as well, and the course was, I mean, to be honest, pretty tough. So I think in our first programming assignment, he gave us a ICPC final question. First, first or maybe the second assignment, it was a ICPC final question to solve. So I mean, like I sucked at it. Some people got it, but I think most people struggle to figure out the solution. But yeah, it was pretty fun. I think in our first quiz, he gave us a question which was open-ended and there was no solution to it. Like no one had a solution to it. So it was a 5 mark question to do in like two questions to do in 1 hour, 5 marks each. One was fairly simple, the other one was an open-ended question. So, I mean, yeah, it's like coming back to my point, you guys get to do these courses in a more or less structured format, but depending on the professor, there might be some like open-ended and like open domain questions. So, like, it might give you a sense of what like research or PhD doing a PhD looks like. So like in this session, maybe I'll mix and match how MS versus PhD experience looks like, and if some of you guys are decided if you want to do a PhD or not, and are thinking of doing an MS as an introductory step, then maybe this will cover some of your doubts or answer some of your doubts. So yeah, so the next question is, according to you, what is the benefit of higher studies? It already feels like we're pretty exhausted with the courses at IITB. That's a really good question. Like, so I think from our batch had a strength of 96, and I think probably 15%, like roughly 15 people. Actually, no, I think roughly 20% people actually enrolled in a MS or PhD program, and like most people were actually like of the opinion that they do not want to pursue higher studies right then because the 4 years of workload is pretty intense, and like they took jobs at different companies, and some of them decided that they actually want to come for a master's or a PhD, and then they like applied in a future year. So like if I'm being honest, like we can talk about the benefit of higher studies in maybe two categories. One could be okay, maybe we can discuss. Okay, let's do it in two categories. So I don't know how much familiar you guys are with the visa situation, but like getting a, let's say, job sponsorship by a US company is hard these days. Mainly because if you guys are directly applying out of undergrad to be based out of a US location, then you need to be on this visa called H-1B, which is pretty restrictive, and there's a lottery-based system which usually has a lower chance of a B.Tech graduate getting in that lottery. In addition to that, when you are joining after you graduate, after your first year, after your fourth year, then I think you need to submit some like graduation documents along with it, and you don't have that ready until after you've graduated. So generally, it's harder these days to get a job in US directly out of undergrad. So what some of these companies do is they hire people for their London location, Canada location, and send people there for some time, like a couple of years maybe. And then you have the option of like coming to a US location. Like their main offices are mostly based out of US for most of the big tech companies. So they transition you to a US based location. Um, so a lot of the times when people just want to come here to the US, their intentions are based out of just getting a visa. So this may not apply completely to ITB students because you guys are definitely smarter and want to experience more things. But like if you look at most random like second, third tier universities, people there just want to use this opportunity to get a visa and enter the States and take up a job following that. So getting admitted into a like higher degree program here in the US gives you the option of that. Like even after graduation, you can directly work with a company here, and the student visa gives you the choice of working for 3 years just after your master's or your PhD. So like that's a pretty sweet deal if you just want to like slouch through maybe 1.5, 2 more years of education. And after that, you get this 3 year long visa, which gives you the option of applying for H-1B, which is a much longer term visa. So there's definitely this thing that people come here just to get a job. People from my batch have done it, and like people do that all the time. So uh, so the duration for doing a master's here is can vary from 1.5 year to 2 years. So in IT Bombay, you guys are required to spend 4 years to get your BTech, right? But here, let's say it's a similar format here. You need to finish like n number of credits to get your master's or your PhD. PhD has more requirements, but like for masters, you need to finish like some n number of credits, and it's generally possible to do it in a year and a half. So you can finish that coursework early, get the degree, and then get started with your job. In addition to that, like there are funding issues which might cause you to finish off the course earlier as well. But I think that's a discussion for maybe a later time. So yeah, so that is definitely a benefit that you get to take up a job. So this is like people who want to like do this as a job, as a job endeavor. But people who want to like establish their career through a PhD, then that is also an opportunity. Like you want to enroll into a PhD program to go to do pioneering new research, and like these graduate programs, both MS and PhD, give you the option of doing that. Oftentimes, some universities also have a research-based masters. So if you guys are still exploring if you want to do a PhD or not and are not committed and just want to explore like what you like, what you don't like through a master's, that's also a possibility. So like enrolling in either the MS or the PhD program definitely like gives you both the job opportunities, like potential job opportunities, as well as exploring what you actually want to do. Um, so I was gonna add something to that. Okay, yeah, maybe I forget. No, so that was actually the case for me. I wanted to like figure out if I actually want to do research, research meaning through a PhD program, and I wasn't sure if I am ready to commit 5 years, 6 years of my life to a PhD, and instead I opted for a master's. And most of my coursework was actually based on projects. I didn't take up coursework, meaning like my credits that I need to finish was centered around taking up projects and not actually like courses. So that was a sweet opportunity that I got to experience both the coursework as well as the research, and I got to do the research which I wanted to test out. So that's definitely something you guys can think about. It, so for people who are already exhausted from the coursework and everything here, and if you want to take up a master's, you don't have to do it right away. You can start with a job and then see if you'd like the job or don't like the job. And on the basis of that, you can decide to pursue further with a master's or a PhD. So that's definitely an option, and you don't have to like do it right away. I have batchmates, I have so many friends, and most of them have actually worked for 1 or 2 years at some company and then came here to pursue their graduate career. So benefits of education. So like as I've been talking that you definitely have some opportunities open up, and you if you're into research and want to do more new things, you definitely can test it out. In addition to that, in addition to that, so you definitely like get to interact with more open cultures here. For example, IIT Bombay is pretty diverse, and you get to see people from pretty much everywhere in India, right? Here, like the universities here are more or less structured on a similar pattern. Like you do, as I was saying, you do your courses, you accumulate certain credits, and on the basis of that, you can get a degree, MS or PhD or whatever. But in addition to that, like the graduate courses are also differently organized. For example, the BTech degree gives you a breadth of what CS has to offer. Like you have all these courses, database compilers, OS, ML, like 20 other things, right? And you get to get a high level understanding of, okay, these are the areas and what what you may want to explore further. So a lot of the people, if they're not sure what they want to do in the future, they use MS as an opportunity to like um, go deep or get the depth of a certain area rather than a breadth, and understand that if they want to pursue that or not. So like other than like job and everything else, you get to explore your interests, and you also get to interact with a more globally diverse culture, because like people from all over the world apply here. Like so admittedly there are a lot of Indians here as well, like especially in the Bay Area, like where most of the tech companies are based out of. So in the universities, you will actually get to see more diverse people, diverse cultures, and you can learn about different people and different cultures. On top of that, the graduate courses are structured not to prioritize the CPI as much. Like pretty much everyone gets the full grade you can get, unless you fuck up royally or like in certain ways. But like everyone pretty much has the full CPI they can get, and no one gives a fuck about the CPI. It's more about the professors wanting you to come to the courses to learn, and even the courses do not have a lot of stress on exams. Like the courses have exams, but the relative weightage is less. Most of the percentage weightage is devoted to the projects or the final assignment, or the assignments or the final project. So it's meant to actually make you do things and learn rather than just like learning and vomiting that in a 2 hour exam and getting a good grade. So the courses generally are like structured to actually make you learn rather than get good grades. So something to keep in mind. Cool. Before we move on, does anyone have any thoughts, questions they would want to ask? Let's see.
There is one question that a lot of my friends have asked me from different domains, such as people who are not pursuing computer science here as a bachelor's program. How can they get into a CSE master's program?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, um, Like so it generally helps to have a CS background because you can catch up on the courses earlier, but it's not a prerequisite. So I know people who applied from different undergrad backgrounds and they were actually in the CS program. So there are two ways you can go about it. First could be even though you're not in CS, you can take up some CS courses or build your background to actually have that base. And I guess we can cover more of this during how the application process works, but I can talk about it now as well. Yeah, so you can build up your background either right now while you're in IIT Bombay, or after graduation, you take up a job which aligns more or less in that direction, and you pick up the skills while doing that job, and then you apply like 1 or 2 years after graduation. So during the admission process, it definitely helps to have a CS background because the professors can see that you will excel at the university and not like slog behind. But like it's definitely possible to do it. It may be harder, but I mean, you will have to build up some of those skills to actually be able to compete with the rest of the people. So we can talk more about this when we get to the application process and how some of those things work, like what people look for in the application process. Okay. Yeah, so one of the questions which is very relevant is COVID, right? So even earlier in the year, when my ISMP mentees and some of my friends were actually contemplating if they should go with the MS or PhD admission offer they get, they were also pretty confused. And this was early in the year, like in March and April, when things were still like not too bad. So like what I generally told them is, sure, you guys can come right now, but there's always some risk associated because the job market, or maybe I can not worry about that and talk about how things are right now because a lot has changed since then. So, one thing which you guys should think about is Donald Trump. So he's a big asshole. So don't quote me on this. Okay, scratch that. You're recording my video. I shouldn't have said that. But regardless of that, like, a lot of people don't like Donald Trump and his policies, and some of his policies have been pretty aggressive at curbing down immigration. Although they may not be completely relevant to the kind of jobs or roles you guys are targeting, but he definitely has been more strict around the H-1B visa, for example. So the job market here in the US has been affected because of COVID, but the tech scene is more or less stable or actually like stronger than before. So it shouldn't affect you guys as much, but there's definitely a like factor as to how things would be in a couple of years from now. We have the elections coming up in like I think 30, 40 days, the US elections. And depending on what the outcome of that is, it can like be a decision to think about. Like I wouldn't say what you guys should do, but like I guess you can use that as an input to your decision making. Um, yeah, like so I've had friends who did not get a job right after like college because of like COVID, because companies were not hiring, and some of the people who had their job offers they got withdrawn. So people definitely had some more struggles to go through right now, but hopefully in the next, if you guys apply now, you will start next year, right? So 2021. Yeah, so hopefully things might be like more uphill from here. Yeah. But I'd say like if you can afford to apply, do apply. Like even if you get into a certain place, most universities or a lot of universities have the offer of have the option of deferring your admit to a later year. So let's say you get in this season, and you decide that okay, for XYZ reasons, I do not want to start right away. Then it might be possible for you to defer the admit by 1 year, so you can start in 2022. Um, yeah, so that's something you guys definitely should keep in your mind. Cool. So the next section I think is more about choosing between MS and PhD. I think I talked about a lot of them right now. like what does MS versus PhD offer? So one question is how should I opt between an MS and a PhD? So again, like I went through these points, like MS can be used as an experimentation ground for taking up higher studies, or if you just want to worry about if you're just thinking about a job, then MS can potentially help you with that. PhD is like more core and like centered around doing new and novel research. So it's definitely a longer term commitment of like at least might say 4 to 5 years for the most part. So you need to be like in the mindset to like go ahead with it. If not, then you can try out a master, see how you like it. You can reapply for a PhD, or some universities also have the option of converting the MS into a PhD. So let's say you start with your MS and you're working with a professor P, and you align with their work and they like you, you like them, and there's a mutual like coherence between you. So it's possible that you can just convert to a PhD program and continue working with the professor. So that's definitely a possibility. Some universities offer that. You guys would want to look into which places are having this option. Um, yeah. So one more thing which maybe I can add is the PhD program. Like, how does the funding work for MS versus PhD? So funding is definitely a concern. It was for me because education in the US is not cheap. It's pretty expensive. I think um, depending on the university, if it's a like government university, then the fees are generally lower. If it's a private university like Stanford or MIT, then the fees are more high. They are on the higher end. So it can cost you like if you're completely self-funded, it can cost you like I think 50 lakhs or like I mean like a good amount of money. If not 50 lakhs, maybe a bit lower, but it can be a significant amount of substantial amount of money. So how does funding work here? Is it's mostly run through. Okay, so maybe so funding basically works in two ways. One is like you guys have TA ships right now, right? You guys, some of you would be TAs, and the department pays you a certain amount of stipend. So how the TA ships work here is you do get a stipend, which is tied to your role, but in addition to that, for the most part, your tuition fees also gets waived. So right now at IT Bombay, you do get a tuition, you get your stipend, but your tuition fees don't get waived. You still need to pay that. But here, most places do waive off your tuition fees and give you a monthly stipend. So that stipend is pretty much like sufficient to sustain you for the semester or whatever the duration is. So that should take care of it. In addition to that, the most common thing is actually being an RA, research assistant with a professor. So in that case, the professor funds you out of their own budget. So the TA ship generally comes from the department funds because you are TA for a course which is run by a certain department. So the department pays for you. And depending on the university, there may or may not be open positions for TA ships. You might want to like talk to people who have attended some of these universities and they'll be able to tell you how things work at theirs. So like I can talk about my university, Wisconsin Madison. So I started in 2017, and like it seemed that the pockets of the university was, or at least the CS department was pretty deep, and pretty much like I don't know of anyone who did not get funded in my batch. So like pretty much everyone had a funding one way or the other, and they didn't have to pay anything out of their pocket. So TShips get sponsored by the department. Depending on how much funding the department has, they may be able to cover a certain amount of TAs for taking care of their tuitions and their stipends. And if you're working with a professor, then in that case, the professor funds you your tuition and your stipend through their own like research funds. So because the professor needs to give you money from their own research budget, it's generally harder to get a RShip compared to a TShip. So like what happens in a TA-ship is you apply to us to be a TA for a certain course, and depending on whether you get it or not, you get your funding approved. So when you guys apply for your master's or PhD, some universities will tell you, or I think most universities will tell you right at um, the offer status whether you have funding or not. So let's say you apply to ABC University and they tell you, okay, we'll be able to fund you for 4 years, let's say, after you start. Then you can be assured that whatever happens, you have funding for 4 years. And after that, you may or may not have funding depending on the scenario. So that's a pretty safe situation. You don't need to worry about your expenses for 4 years. You're taken care of, and you can like make a decision. I mean, that definitely makes making a decision easier. And a lot of universities will also tell you that, okay, we are giving you an admit, but we cannot ensure that you will have funding right away. So in that case, you're on your own. And what you can do is you can either start contacting professors who may align with your like research interests and ask them for an RShip. If they oblige, then perfect, you have funding. And if not, then you can wait until the semester starts and TA positions are being filled up and you get to apply then. So depending on how things work out, you may or may not get funding then. So like there's always this risk factor if you don't have funding at the beginning, but like depending on the university, it can be low risk or high risk. Um, that's something for you guys to do your research on. So yeah, so MS, this is the scenario with MS. With PhD, I think PhD is generally tied to an advisor. So if someone is offering you a PhD, then for the most part, you are guaranteed funding for like 4 to 5 years. If you take longer than that to finish your PhD, then it's up to you and your rapport with the professor if they want to continue funding you longer than that. So, but like the bottom point is that you guys should know how your funding would look like for the most part during the offer acceptance or offer stage. And PhD, it's most likely guaranteed. MS, depending on the university, it may or may not be guaranteed. So yeah, like so I think we covered funding and how like or what you should be thinking about when you're considering PhD versus masters. Cool. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. All right. Cool. Um, yeah, so next is there's so many options for higher studies in CS in terms of institutes and the domains. What should I choose? This is also a like tough question to answer. Um, Agreed, there's so many universities and all of them have their specialities, but I guess if you're just thinking about a like job-based masters, then it shouldn't be so much of a concern. I guess you should be thinking more about where you can get the most funding. But if you have a like sliver of doubt that you want to do a research, then I guess you can be more careful about selecting universities and like actually understanding how professors and their interests align with you. So if you're applying to a PhD, then it's most likely assume that you have like a small set of people that you want to work with, usually one, two, or up to three people. So on the basis of that, you would be applying to a university. And if you are still worried about figuring out if you want to do a PhD through your master's, then also like I mean, it's generally a good idea to see which professor you would like to work with. And if you are like not sure, then probably I mean, it's up to you how you guys want to play it out. But like, there are options, and a lot of these universities specialize in certain domains. Like, um, some universities may be good for, let's say, networks, or universities or a certain lab in the university might be good for networks, or for theory, or machine learning, or for 200 other things. So, um, it generally is tough. So what people do is you have like these list of university rankings ranked by the department. So people generally go through that list and just see where they want to define their threshold for not applying beyond that. and then from the top n choices, you like pick the places you want to apply to. Um, yes, I think the top of the list would be MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, and some other good university that I forget the name of. CMU, right? So like these places are definitely good. Like I mean, they're the best in the world for CS. So if you guys are seriously considering, then you should apply there. And on top of that, like you can get your pick of follow-up institutes where you would also like to put your application in. One thing which you guys should keep in mind is like all of these universities have an application fee. So you shouldn't like go crazy applying to 20 universities because like it will like I mean cost you a decent amount. Plus, you would also have to provide your TOEFL scores, and they also cost some amount of money to be sent to the universities. I think a lot of universities do not require GRE starting this season, but don't quote me on that. You might want to figure out what the current rules are. But if universities require GRE, then that also costs money to send those scores to the universities. For people who don't know what GRE and TOEFL is, like, so GRE stands for, I think, Graduate Record Examination. It's basically an online test on like decently good English skills and 10th to 12th level mathematics. So, like, you need to take this and get a certain score and get a score above a certain threshold, and a lot of universities require this. But since it doesn't help get a sense of how well your CS performance is, a lot of the universities are scraping the requirement for this. The other thing which most pretty much every university requires is this thing called TOEFL. It stands for, which is spelled TOEFL and stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. You need to take this to like tell the university that you can speak English fairly well, and yeah, it's I think again a 2 hour, I think 2 hour test. I forget the duration, but you need to take this test and get wait. I think TOEFL has 4 sections. It used to be that way 4 years back. It has 4 sections, and each section has a 30 mark weightage, like 30 points. And for to be considered as a TA as a TA in some universities, you want to meet a certain threshold in all of the 4 sections. So I think Cornell has this requirement that in the speaking section you score above like some score like 28 or 29. So like your TA application or TA grants are also tied to how well you do in the TOEFL test. Because if you cannot speak English well enough, then it will be harder for you to communicate with like the students that you're TAing. So you might want to look into that as well. Yeah, so like once you have filtered out, you have your universities listed out, send your scores to them, and you also need to go through the application process. And yeah, so let's actually talk about the application process. I think I've been deferring it long enough. We can go into that right now. Before we go there, what questions do you guys have? Okay.
I have a question about the application process itself. What is the ranking of the different things that are required for the application, like your letter of recommendation or your statement of purpose and these test scores? How do we
Yeah.
rank them?
Yep. That's a good question. Yep. So so what the application process generally looks like is you need to provide your like most likely grade sheets, your transcript, meaning you need to provide your uh, fees, your application fees. You need to write an essay, generally called the SOAP, like statement of purpose, which like gives an overview of what you're trying to do or why you're applying for this in the first place. And after that, you have like your resume and the recommendation letters from professors. So um, if you're applying for a PhD, then I think the recommendation letter is the most valuable thing because if some professor is corroborating the fact that you're good at research and you can handle that well, that is a really good testament to like you. And the scores like the GPA and these things, GPA meaning CPI, these scores matter to some extent, but I guess overall the statement of purpose is really important for a PhD. So you need to have like three recommendations from professors as well as a like decent statement of purpose for a PhD. So like these professors generally could be from like your internships or people you're working with right now, or like someone else who guided you and can provide good recommendation for you. Um, so I'm assuming that this is the case when you're applying right out of your university. If some of you guys decide to actually take up a job and then apply, then I guess industry recommendations also can be substituted. Like your manager or someone else can provide a recommendation for you. Although for PhDs, I think it's advisable to have at least two professor recommendations, and the third one could be a industry recommendation. Coming to masters, like for masters, for the most part, I think your GPA matters. But like GPA can be like if you have a relatively let's say lower GPA, then that can be balanced by a good like CV where you have like good amount of projects or probably internships, and statement of purpose is I guess more or less loosey goosey for a MS, but you definitely want to write it really well. Like the recommendation is definitely helpful. So it's actually okay. Let me rephrase all of this. Your recommendations are the most important thing. If you have good recommendations, then that helps you a lot. And if not, like a very strong set of recommendations, then you can like go to your CPI and your course projects or your internships or XYZ other things to balance that out. So definitely try to establish good relationship with professors who might be able to write letters for you, and it's generally three, at least three. Some universities allow four, so might want to like think about that. Um, yeah, speaking of recommendations, some professors have a limit that they'll be providing like up to let's say 8 or 10 recommendations for you. So uh, you might want to respect that because they have other students to write letters for as well. So do not go like applying to 20 universities because you will like not have good recommendations for you. So probably best to filter out a list of universities depending on how the professor works with you. Um, yeah, so uh, this is the application process. You try to figure out where you want to get recommendations, and ideally you want to start talking to professors before like you're actually applying, like let's say 1 month before 1 or 2 months before the application is due. You would want to get a sense of who might be able to guide you and write recommendations for you. That's something I definitely recommend to do. um that's there. What else does it include?
Can you tell about the timeline of the application? Like, at what time do we approach the professors? What time does the application process?
Yeah. So the application for most universities is due on the December 15th, or that's how it used to be. Uh, so some universities have like a later or an earlier deadline. I think CMU and Stanford have a early December deadline. Like so, all of this information is based out of 4 years old knowledge. So you might want to like research this as to how things are recently. But yeah, most universities have a deadline of December 15th. Some universities have a sooner deadline, some universities have a later deadline. I think Georgia Tech allows applications to be submitted even in late January or early Feb. Cornell also allows some late applications in January, I believe. So I mean, just the websites will tell you what are the deadlines. So assuming that for most universities your deadline is sometime in December, so you should be preparing according to that. Um, you should ideally have taken your GRE or and TOEFL hopefully by September and December. Sorry, September and October. These tests, let's say if you did not get a good score in like the first attempt, then these tests allow you to retake them after some days gap. So you might want to keep enough like space available that if, let's say, for whatever reason you fucked up, then you have the option of retaking it to fix your scores. So ideally you should be done by your GRE and these things by September, if not like October, early October, because I think you guys also have a midsem sometime in July. No, your midsems in September, right? Mid-September.
Yes.
So you might want to like structure it for like maybe just after the midsems or 1 or 2 weeks before the midsem so that you have enough time to prepare. So that's there. You should definitely talk to your professor at least, I think, at least a month and a half, 2 months in advance for who might be able to provide recommendations for you because the professors will also require some time to write a letter for you. So, like, let's say the deadline is in early December, first week of December. Do not want to send them an email in late November saying, "Kyare, I have a deadline tomorrow. Can you please write me a letter?" I mean, that'll be a bad letter, so it's gonna just jeopardize you. So, like, approach them definitely by like mid-October and ask them if they'll be able to provide you a strong recommendation. If they seem confident that they'll be able to write a good letter for you, awesome. If they say that they may be not able to write a very strong letter, but like a weak or a general letter, then you might want to like start, taking action items and how you can fix your project with the professor or find other referees who can improve your recommendation letters. So yeah, other than that, like the other things like the essay, the statement of purpose, and the resume are up to you how soon you can like write them down. Definitely like leave some amount of time, like at least 15 days or a month even, to like get it reviewed by other people, and you should have a first draft ready by like at least 15 days, 1 month in advance to the deadline. So yeah, is there anything else? Oh yeah. So one thing I was saying, I think this is a question for later, but I can go through it now. CPI, right? So a lot of you guys have concerns ki I don't have the best CPI. Should I even like think about applying? So that is a valid concern. CPI definitely helps you like get a easy admit versus a not so easy admit. But like if you have a relatively poor CPI, I'm, I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just saying that if you think that your CPI is not like as good as you would want it to be, then having good recommendation letters like can boost your score. So, for example, one of like a few of my batchmates had, I think, CPI, and let's say not very great CPIs. I won't discuss numbers, and they were able to get into good schools with like strong recommendation letters. So you can offset for that by trying to like work with professors and good like and get in their good books. So for the current fourth year students, maybe um, like this might be a bit too late, but I guess you can salvage the time that you have and do your best. For younger students, like you have enough time to like for current third year and junior students, you have enough time to like figure this out. So try to have a rough timeline as to how you would want to do this. Okay. Okay, so someone else is to ask me a question other than Tanay, else I refuse to go ahead. Like I
I
just
have
feel
a
I've been talking for an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a small question. So, like, at how many places that you applied, and like, do you remember like a rough estimate of how much, let's say, it costed you to apply at all the places combined?
Yeah. So I think I applied to approximately 10 places, give or take one, two more. I forget the exact number, but I think like the 10 places. And cost wise, so a lot, most of these universities have an application fee of 100-ish dollars, which would be, wait, no, is it $100? It should be cheaper, right? But let's say $100, then that is like 7,000, 7.5K rupees for you guys. So like with the GRE, TOEFL, all of these expenses combined, I think my total expenditure was close to a lakh and like 10, 20K. I mean, 1,20,000 ish. Like, I mean, these are the rough numbers I remember, but it was definitely north of 1 lakh rupees. So, like, yeah, it can be a bit expensive depending on how many places you apply to. So, I think CMU has this good thing that if you, let's say, decide you want to apply there, then you can pay the fees before a certain date and you get a discount there. So, like, you don't have to submit the application soon, but you can pay the application fee earlier, and you get some discount, and you can submit the final application on whenever the deadline is. So, maybe looking into this sooner might be beneficial. You can save a few bucks there. Yeah. Cool.
And yeah, also that of the 10 places, how many universities were you accepted of the 10?
Right. So I think my admits were from University of Wisconsin-Madison and University of California, San Diego. So I was hoping to make it into different places, but there was some like huge fuck up with my recommendation. So like I mean that's why I'm giving you this advice that talk to professors early and like so what happened. Okay, maybe I think it doesn't hurt to go through that. You guys can have better lessons to learn. So what happened is that I had worked with this professor at IST Austria, right? And I was hoping to get a strong recommendations from him. And I contacted him, I think, well in advance. um, Maybe I think September or sometime, and I asked if he'll be able to provide me a recommendation. He agreed, and then I had worked with a doctorate fellow there, and the professor asked me to get the postdoc to write a letter and then send it to the professor, and he'll submit on my behalf. So like this, my postdoctorate person, I suspect like did some delay or didn't provide a very strong recommendation, because of which this main professor like he did not submit a recommendation. And this like I'm applying for Stanford on I think December 6th, and the recommendation isn't in. I am trying to mail the professor, trying to call him, but no response. So basically, I was missing my like most strong recommendation on the application deadline date. So I had to panic and like arrange for an alternate recommendation from some professor I had met during my Adobe internship, and like he wrote a recommendation in like a few hours. And I'm really thankful to him that he actually obliged, else I would have been fucked really bad. And like he obliged, he put together something, and then he was able to submit it on my behalf. So like I still haven't heard back from the IST professor yet, like after 4 years. So like these fuck ups can happen, and like it can like be pretty damaging to you. So that's why like be in touch with your professors as soon or as early as you can, and definitely try to have a good rapport with them. Like work with them, give them like and work enough so that they're happy with your progress, and like they're able to like give you a good referral. So yeah, like I mean, just something my 2 cents to keep in mind. Okay, cool. So the next section is experience of studying here and stress levels. So I think I discussed the ACADS sometime earlier, how the culture and how the courses are structured for both PhD and masters. It's pretty similar to how things are in INSTI. Like you have a grade-based system, you need to finish N credits to get a certain degree. Um, the grad courses are like more, I think, learning based rather than grade based. So you might want to optimize the learning rather than like optimize for the grades. Uh, do we feel the same pressure in higher studies like we feel in the INSTI? So I feel that, wait, okay. Actually, before I answer this, let me, okay, I forgot to cover one thing. So when I was saying how to decide between universities or what universities look for in your like application package, so some universities so this is specific to the master's program. Some universities only care about how successful you can be in their master's program. So for example, Stanford, I think, don't quote me on this, but like I have friends who told me this that Stanford, I think, cares about how well you can do in your master's courses, and I think they're less concerned with the like research probably that you have done. So um, yeah, just something I wanted to add. Okay, yeah. Pressure-wise, I think if you have successfully survived 4 years of IIT Bombay CS, then these universities in the US would most likely be a breeze. I guess like the department drills you enough to make you ready for pretty much anything. And like me, my friends, pretty much everyone thought that the education here was like much easier to go through rather than at Insti. So like it shouldn't be very hard for you guys. Um, Next question is how is the student to student and student to instructor interaction in foreign states? Again, like the professors are very open. They want you to learn and not worry about grades. So they have their office hours where you can go and talk to them, learn with them. Most of the discussions happen in a piazza. Do you guys know what piazza is? Piazza, Moodle, or whatever is being used these days. So like TAs and the professors are able to like provide their feedback there. So like it's pretty involved. Like it's much more learning based, and professors and TAs are like actively involved in this. So just for context, the TAs here are expected to work up to 20 hours a week for their courses. So like the stipend that TAs get is actually reflected in the 20 hours worth of work each week. So like it's a pretty substantial expectation from TAs, and you can expect that the TAs will be responsive and helping you aggressively. And if you guys are gonna be TAs, then also that puts a like a significant time responsibility and commitment on you. So it's not a easy job because you get paid certain amount of money. Your tuition expenses and stipend are being covered. So you might want to take it seriously. Um, cool. So what questions do you have? So other than Tane and the person I can see on my screen, someone else has to ask me something. So, sorry, what's your name, dude? Like, I just see a roll number here.
Tathagat.
Tathagan. Are you in your third year?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So someone other than Tane and Tathagan. Okay, we
Hello.
have a taker.
Sir, so does taking a TA ship now at
Wait,
IITB
wait,
for
wait.
their course, will it be?
Did you did you call me sir?
Yeah.
Dude, like, do you guys not refer to each other or your seniors by name anymore?
No, like, okay, fine.
Dude, come on,
So,
like, don't insult me by calling me sir. Like, what is that? Call me
yeah,
Prajat, that's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So does taking a TA ship now, like, will it be useful? Like, since for a master's or PhD, we will be like presenting ourselves as a TA. So taking a TA ship now, will it be useful? Like the resume or anything?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps. Like, if you have TA experience on your resume, then like that definitely gives you more brownie points. So anything good or positive, like, can offset some of the other deficiencies you might have in your application. But like, so wait, okay, let me think about this. So it definitely helps, and it definitely helps even more when you're applying for a TA position when you have joined the university. So probably you can like in some cases talk about so at least some universities require you to fill out your TA preference list, and oftentimes they require you to provide your grades as well. What grade you got in this course or what courses have you done? So like having or if the university input form provides a way to fill in your prior experience, then talking about it definitely will like I mean it definitely should give you a boost in that sense. So I mean anything which is good should help you out even further, I expect. So it doesn't hurt becoming a TA, plus you get paid here as well, so might as well. Sure.
But the point is, like, being a TA will be like much more like will increase the workload. So what I want to ask is it really worth taking a TA ship because it might be helpful or useful. Like so if I am going to apply as a present myself as a TA for the university, or it won't give that much significant contribution there.
Um, so pretty much, I think most people who applied in my batch or like in junior batches, I think had some TA experience from IIT Bombay. Like there might be few people who did not, but I think everyone more or less had some sort of TA experience. At least if you apply fresh out of undergrad. If you, I think so. I mean, I know my answer doesn't help you very much because I'm not giving any contrastive points here. But yeah, let me actually talk to people and see if someone didn't have a TA, and I can maybe share the feedback with Tane and he can forward it to you guys. Yeah, but I think most people did have some TA experience when they applied here. So let me like see who may not have had some TA experience. Cool. I'll make a note of this as my follow-up item. All right. Yeah, keep the questions coming. Okay. If not, then I guess we can move on to the next sections about jobs and placements. Um, so blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I think the main thing here is how jobs are different from jobs at IIT Bombay. So I'm assuming you guys still have the PT cell or some similar body which helps you get internships and jobs.
Yes, yes, we do have the PT cell.
Okay, yeah. So um, PT cell is a awesome thing, man. Like it does pretty much everything that you need to do. Just you just give them their resume, your resume, and they curate companies and bring them on campus for you. So things here are a bit different. You don't have PT cell, so you're pretty much on your own to apply for jobs, which is a like more different and difficult experience because you need to like apply to companies and go to their websites, put in your resumes, and hope that some recruiter or someone reaches out to you. So some universities have this thing called the career fair, where on a certain day, like these recruiters or engineers from a lot of these companies would come set up their booths and stalls, and you can go talk to them. And oftentimes they, like some companies, at least Facebook, asks you to submit your resume then and there. So you can submit your resume and like it goes through. I mean, it is guaranteed to go through a scrutiny. Like your application will be looked over, and like depending on how the profile is, you may get a call back. So some places have this career fair which facilitates, like interacting with the companies and the representatives. And but I think for the most part, you have to apply to the company directly, and it helps knowing people because you can get their referrals for your job application. They can like provide your referral in the company that they work at. So things are a bit different. It's definitely like a new thing to get used to. Um, Plus, I think when you guys start your degree here, it generally starts sometime in August and September. And for those of you who will be aiming to get an internship for the following summer, you have like, I mean, you need to get started like without too much lag because these career fairs and internship applications start getting filled right from the first semester onwards. So like it can be like challenging because you just joined the university and now you need to worry about your courses, your funding source, your TRRship, as well as like start figuring out the internship thing. So yeah, I mean like it can be a bit new to get used to.
So, how did you go about applying at Facebook?
Yeah, so I think it was exactly what like as I was saying. So I University of Wisconsin-Madison has a career fair or had a career fair 3 years ago, and people from Facebook attended it. I met them, provided them my resume, and I got a call back from a recruiter. Had two coding-based interviews over phone, and things thankfully worked out for me. So I had my internship 2 summers back in 2018. They thankfully gave me a return offer back, and then I decided to join Facebook. So like I mean like more or less straightforward. Return offer, I guess PPO is what you guys call it, right? So like yeah, but yeah, I think like that's the best thing which can happen to you, and I honestly think I got lucky. But actually, yeah, so at Facebook, things are actually nice because if you get an internship and you don't fuck up royally, it's actually not very hard to get a return offer. So Facebook doesn't have the hassle of having an interview after you're done with the internship. Like some companies, specifically, I think Google has this thing where you need to like I think also go through an interview round after your internship ends, and then if you like do well overall, you get a return offer back. So like Facebook has a more like streamlined offer process, and you know that you are having a job offer or not before your internship ends. So you can plan things out according to that. So yeah, how this is how I got into Facebook. Placements are a bit different, and get like they can get a bit competitive. So let's say if you don't manage to find an internship during the first semester, so it generally like becomes harder to get it in the second semester because most companies generally like to fill out their internship pools like as quickly as possible. So you'll have to like try harder, contact more companies, and hopefully like hopefully something would work out for you. Um, Yeah, so like even after placements or after let's say you're done with your internship, it's the same grind. You can like either just accept the PPO or apply to more companies. Here, generally it's different because I think the PT cell enforces you to accept or reject an offer within certain days or something. Like you cannot sit or not sit in the final interview process depending on some rules that they have. So things are a bit different here. I think actually no, are they different? It actually depends on the university. Some universities have a deadline of like accepting an offer by so and so date, but some universities don't. In which case, it's the decision of the company to like let you accept the offer by a certain date. So I guess in that sense, it's pretty similar to how IT Bombay is. And in the meanwhile, like you can apply to different companies, interview with them, and then see which this direction you want to pursue. Yeah. Um. Yeah, but like yeah, for placements you need to like do your own shit. You don't have like the convenience of PT cell that all companies come on like December 1st and you have this nice arrangement. You just go wake up from your hostel rooms and take the interview. You need to do your own stuff, do a initial interview, then most likely they'll fly you to their. And this is how things used to be in pre-COVID times. They'll fly you to their main offices, and you'll have like 4 or 5 rounds of in-person interview. But I think now things are happening over VC. I'm not sure how things would be in a year or two, but some of it would definitely be over VC. Yeah. So next question is, can we get into Facebook without opting for higher studies? I'd say it's generally hard, dude. Like I was talking about the visa situation earlier, and I don't think we sponsor H1B directly for BTech students because like the lottery may or may not go through successfully, and like it's a good amount of cost for the company to apply for H1B. So generally, BTechs are not worth the effort unless you are a stellar student, in which case there might be exceptions. But like generally speaking, um, with a direct BTech, it's hard to get into the US office. Facebook does have a London office, and it might be possible for you to get to there and then do an internal company transfer and move to a US location in a few years. So our batch did not have the choice of, I think, applying to Facebook London as well. But our senior batch, people who graduated in 2016, a lot of them had actually interned at Facebook US and the return offer that they got was for Facebook London. And some of them also interviewed through the final placement and got into Facebook London. And some of them are still actually at the Facebook London office, and some of them have actually moved to the US. So, but I think the main path is through the London office, and then you can decide if you want to stay there or switch places. But generally, like, I mean, these days, I think we don't hire directly from BTech. Um, yeah, experience working at Facebook. I think it's pretty awesome. Like, Facebook is an amazing company to work at. Like, I work on machine learning, so it's super nice and easy to do things here. Just as a context, like, I don't know how many of you have taken an ML course, but like ML, machine learning ML has some steps where you need some good stable infrastructure to train your models. You definitely can do things faster if you have access to GPUs. And like working at big companies, you generally don't have constraints on these devices, and you can like easily access them, and like you don't need to worry about the infrastructure to like be a bottleneck. So that facilitates a lot of the work. They're excellent people you'll get to work at. There's like super smart, some of the smartest people you'll meet, and it's like really nice learning curve and experience from them. Um, Facebook is a bit like, I mean, people work a lot, so the work pressure is a lot. Like I wouldn't say it's a chill job. When I definitely have more things to do than I can accommodate in my time. So it's definitely like not chill, but like there's too much to learn and too many things to try out. So opportunities are endless. Yeah, like so definitely the money is good. You get compensated well, but like I mean, I wouldn't recommend you guys just look at the absolute figures that these newspapers or these sources tell you about. Like the tax rate that you pay here is close to like 30-40%, which is huge. So basically 60% of your paycheck is what you get in hand. And after that, um, like you also have big expenditure expenses, especially in the Bay Area or like in these tech hubs. Like just an example, the house that I live in, it's a two-bedroom, two-bath house. Our monthly rent is $3,100, which would be like 2 lakh 20-30,000 rupees for 1 month. So like it's a significant expense, and you just cannot go by like, okay, I'm making n crores, but I mean that is like pre-tax, pre-expense money, which doesn't make sense. So expenses are big, and they can cut down into your like actual in-hand money. And let's say for some of you guys who apply and decide to go through regardless of a funding opportunity, and you are required to cover that out of your own pocket. So, like some of this money that you make here might be going to that loan or that deficit uh, budget or whatever, right? So, something to keep in mind. But I think if you do not get funded, probably you can still take a risk and hope that you get a good job, and that can cover some of your expenses. So, I mean, it's up to how you want to tolerate, how good or how much you want to risk it. So I think this is like the main set of questions. There are other
Also,
things. Yeah.
since you've had your BTech, you had your masters, and now you're working at Facebook. So, what is the improvement that on a personal level you have working at Facebook?
Yeah.
Like, what is
So
the improvement?
yeah. So I think definitely you get to like you definitely become more mature as a person. Because like for example, you're working in a corporate, a more cultured setting, so you need to be like more respectful, and like, you won't have all the freedom that you want. You're ultimately working in a company, so the company has their own business needs, and like you need to like understand them and how to optimize for that and how to do your best there. So you definitely grow and learn a lot, and you become more mature trying to like observe these things. Other than that, like you grow technically a lot because you have your course projects and these things, right? And you want to do well on a certain, and you want to do well to achieve a certain outcome. And a lot of the data or the experiments that you guys do are like more structured, right? But in a real world setting, and especially at the scale of Facebook, things are just like there's so much chaos in everything. And to get things right, you also want to worry about the corner cases and what if this fucks up, and like you have a model that is expected to do X, but in some case it does Y, and then that can have a big impact, right? So I mean, just as an example, like so our CTO is like Chief Technology Officer's name is Shrep. So like the ASR models, like the voice to text models that we have, I think they sometimes gets his um, name recognition as Shrek, like from the movie. So I mean, like that's. I mean, his name is not the most traditional name, so our systems sometimes mess up. But I mean, it can be a bit embarrassing because I mean, you don't want your executives, like the top executives' names, to be misidentified. So you want to worry about these cases, and like doing things makes you more aware. And just like as you go and get promoted, you'll take a more responsibility. You'll have to work with like different people. How do you convey your ideas in a respectful way so that you can achieve the end outcome without actually picking fights with them? So just like you pick up a lot of soft skills, interacting with people and like learn how they communicate, and you try to inculcate some of them in you as well. So like it's I think a holistic development. You grow technically, of course, but like you also pick up certain skills which are not taught in an academic setting. Cool.
Hello.
So like yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I had a doubt. Should I ask a doubt right now?
Yep. I think we're done with the questions. So let's just I think we're done with the like questions I had. So let's just leave the stage open for whoever has any questions.
So yeah, I'm not sure whether this has been answered earlier or not, but
यार
if
सर
my
मत
end,
बुलाओ यार
no,
क्या
I
हो गया
didn't call you
इंस्टीट्यूट
sir. I said
okay
answered.
oh okay
Yeah,
okay my
yeah.
bad
I said I don't know whether this had been answered or not. Yeah.
अच्छा हाँ
So like if my end goal is to do research in a company, like so how like what's the difference in having a PhD or having an MS, like salary wise or promotion wise, something like that?
right and this is perfect, thanks for bringing this up. So this actually relates to my journey as well as to why I did not do a PhD. Yep. So So I mean, this is my opinion. You may or may not take it completely. So like, take it with a pinch of salt. But what I feel is, pretty much all of these companies have two kind of roles that you can take up after a PhD. So MS, you can join as a regular software engineer, but as a PhD, you can have two possibilities. One, you join the research lab that a company may have, or like if it let's say join a startup, then like they might be working on some new open-ended problems, and as a PhD you can take up some of those. So you get to do research, open research as well. So for example, for context, Facebook has the research lab called FAIR, Facebook AI Research. Google has Google Brain, right? So these are like more research based teams where you get to do research. But even after a PhD, you can still work in a non-research, non-research is not the right word, but like in a product team where you are working towards deploying things to the the aim of the company, as well as doing some research in parallel. So for example, my team in speech recognition, we have like pretty much my entire team or my speech org is made up of PhDs. So they help productionize a lot of the things from research papers or from the academia, as well as like if they have new things that they're working on, then we publish those papers as well. So like some of my work also had like even though I don't have a PhD, some of my work also has some new research component to it as an example. So most likely it depends on the team, but like coming back to a question, like depending on what your interests align or how your PhD looks like in the end, you might have the option of like pursuing research in industry as well as doing a product work with some research component to it. And like there's the whole other direction of going to academia as a professor or a postdoc.
So I was, I wanted to ask, like, if is an MS sufficient to work in a lab? Like, is it easy to get into a lab if I just have MS?
No, so like for the most part, you will be required to have a PhD. Um,
Okay.
so like yeah, because so there are two things. You can work in a lab as a research scientist, where you get to work on these new problems, you get to propose your own ideas, or you can work as a research engineer, where you get to work with these research scientists in a like engineering role, meaning you help them implement their ideas, test them out. So there's a good amount of learning there as well, because like you are actually working on state of the art novel problems, but like I guess you'll have fewer shots to call there. But like generally most of these like labs require you to have a PhD to do like general research. Open-ended, like it's not completely open-ended. It needs to align with some of the company's interests. I think Microsoft Research is one exception, or at least it used to be, because people worked on all kinds of new things which may not be completely aligned with the company. But generally, you are expected to. Um, I mean, you do have a lot of research freedom, but you need to have some constraints here and there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was talking about my journey, right? So I also came here to actually like explore research and then see if I want to do a PhD or not. So when I arrived here, I actually started working as a RA, writing my first semester with this professor, and then like his work was not aligned completely with my interest. Like it was at the intersection of GPUs and like networking and compilers work. So I actually did not work with him. I signed up with a different professor who was in complete like core ML. I worked with her for a semester and things are actually going really good. And I also was considering committing to her as a PhD student, but then like there's this snafu where for some reason she had to like switch cities and she moved from University of Wisconsin-Madison to University of Chicago, and she actually offered me to come with her to University of Chicago and continue working with her. So like this was around the end of my second semester at UW-Madison, and I also had my Facebook internship coming up like 2 summers back, and I was leaving this decision at the end of the internship to get a sense of if I want to continue with the PhD or not. So like the question was that I mentioned that I had done 2 internships in undergrad and most of them were research based, and I did not have a feel of what industry looks like. So I wanted to do this internship to get a feel of that, as well as to like how does like coding at a big company uh, what does software engineer at a big company look like. So like after the at the end, like during my internship I actually got to work in the ads team at Facebook, and that is where I discovered that probably PhD is not the best thing for me. So why? It actually depends on the answer I just gave. That like in industry you can do as a PhD you can do both very research roles or like software engineer type roles. So my team had a couple of PhDs, and they were working on problems which I could have taken up if I had like let's say 3 years or 2 years of industry experience. So um, knowing myself, probably I wouldn't have had a very stellar PhD to make it into one of the research labs as a research scientist, like it's let's say brain or fair. So it made more sense for me to not actually like aim for the biggest stars, and like know that okay, if I'm going to be working as a research scientist in a general role, then probably I can do that while working as a normal software engineer and get a few promotions and get to that level to do those things myself. So, like on the basis of all of this, I had to move to Chicago. I would have had to move to Chicago, get some visa adjustments done. Plus, like Facebook gave me this experience. Plus, like obviously, you make much more working in a company as opposed to being a grad student. So all of these just like pointed me that the best decision for me would have been to like just find a good team at Facebook. I actually interviewed with other companies. I got into Google as well, but the team didn't align well with me. So I decided to join Facebook, and got into my current team, and like yeah, I mean, like I've been super happy with that decision. So like uh, yeah, it's up to you guys to how do you reflect on yourself, how do you internalize these things to yourself, what do you think is the right thing for you to do, and then you can make a decision about all of this. So like I'm just sharing this not to like enforce my views on you, but just to give you as an overview or idea as to what you may go through, or what you can think about, or how things may not work out how you thought it should be, but things may work out for the better because you had limited knowledge at a past time. Cool. Who else? Who else has
I have
Uh,
I have a question.
Yep.
So the question is that, like, after doing, let's say, MS only, let's look at MS only. So like people go to US do MS, then they might do a job there. So then do people come back to India after doing that type of thing? Like, does that happen? Because I mean, as much as I know, so like once people go to USA, then they like stay there for most of the time.
Yeah, I know. So that is a like valid, like a good question. So personally, I want to come back to India because like I have like for whatever reasons, but I have this feeling that I want to return to India. It's not finalized, but like we'll see how things evolve. But like as a more concrete example, um, IT Bombay senior, someone who graduated in 2016, he actually like he was actually at the same university, UW Madison. He joined Facebook as a SWE, exactly same trajectory as me. And last year, after working for like 1 year at Facebook, he decided to move back to India. So currently, he is in India working, I think, at Vadvani AI research. So people do that. Like it's, I think, um a lot of my friends also have plans to probably return to India. Like none of us know for sure. We just have been like working for like a year and a half, and there's lots to learn working around like working at these companies or basically doing a job. And we don't have enough clarity right now, but like some of my friends have this opinion that they might want to move back to India. Yeah.
Like any particular thing that you might have in mind that like these things I'm not liking in US. That's why I prefer moving back to India.
Yeah, so like family is one of those people. Oh, sorry, one of those concerns. Like, yeah, I don't personally have any family here, so I have friends, but like definitely having the support of a family is easier. If, for example, if I were working in Bangalore or Hyderabad or some tech city in India, then if on a certain weekend I'm bored, I can probably just get the next flight and go back home for like 2, 3 days, get a change, and then return back. So you don't have that liberty or that freedom here. Like the flights take at least 16 hours in the most direct sense, and if you have layovers, it can take up to 24 hours. So you need to plan it well in advance, and like there might be visa restraints. And for example, right now I might want to go visit my family, but because of COVID and like other visa conditions, I may not be able to. So like family is definitely one thing. um, it's also hard living here because like you don't have a support system built here. Like you may have friends or like when you like attend your university at some city X, and then you move somewhere else to do your job. Like it may not be possible for you to have friends there. So like you might like need to take a responsibility to get to know people. So it can be challenging that way too. Um, Plus, like food is something that at least I worry about sometimes. Like, dude, I mean, you guys, okay, some of you, like, Kanjurmarg station, right? Like, they have a Vada Pav station, and they used to have this Momo station with Ganne ka ras. Like, I crave that so much. So, just like some of the things that you get in an authentic style at like Indian localities or Indian street food, like I miss that a lot. Like here in the Bay Area, like there are lots of Indian restaurants, but I mean, obviously they're different. They're not as authentic as at least I would want it to be. So, like there are concerns. It's not like life is golden here. It's tough here. Um, like there can be a lot of mental health issues if you um, like don't find the best support system, and things could be tough. Like it's not like the easiest thing that I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
had a question as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, how well do publications or letters of recommendation help in masking a relatively poor CPI?
Yeah, so that is a recommendation. I think that's the most important thing. Um,
Okay.
if you have that, then that definitely is a very good thing for you. Like, so as I was talking earlier, that I know people who didn't have like good CPIs. Again, let me rephrase, not good CPIs, but like lower than where what they would want it to be, and they were able to get into good schools on the basis of their resumes or their letters of recommendation. So it is possible to do that.
So, is this with respect to PhDs, like PhD applications?
No, this is for masters.
Okay,
For
so
PhD, I
for
think.
PhD, yeah.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
As I was saying, like, what is the same for PhDs? Like, is this true for PhDs as well?
Yeah, so I think for PhDs, letters of recommendation matter the most because if a professor is vouching for your skills, then that definitely helps. And it also depends what kind of PhD you want to do, right? For example, if you want to do a PhD in field X and you have like relatively lower grades in like courses not related to field X, then probably that can not matter as much because like sure I want to do theory for example, but you have bad grades in networks, then probably like I mean it doesn't matter as much, right? Because like they are very different fields. So depends key where do you not have as good grades and how they relate to the field you actually want to pursue. But like this is a good thing. Like if you guys are considering doing PhDs, then I guess you should discuss this with your advisor. Like I guess if you are thinking of a PhD, then with a high likelihood some of you might be doing BTPs or R&Ds with some professor. So might be a good idea to discuss this with them as to like I am thinking of doing a PhD, and your professors have been through that PhD process, right? So they might have more context, and oftentimes professors have their connections at different universities, so their referrals might have a higher impact in certain cases. Like, I mean, it's not ensure, it's not guaranteed, obviously, but like your professor might be able to help you out in some way. So definitely talk to your professors about this and like tell them that okay, so and so places I want to apply, I've been working with you, what do you think I should do? So for PhD I think definitely you should have a more candid and open discussion with your professors. So like let's do it for like I think 7 more minutes. If people have more questions, then maybe you can send it to Tanay and I can take a look at them. But like
Great.
let's see if people have more questions. If not, then like we can just stop.
So, I
I
had another question.
Mm-hmm.
पूछते तथागत पूछिए.
so like I was asking, uh, so like one thing I wasn't like quite clear about it when you had mentioned that the like you had mentioned that the tuition fees is waived off like once you are a TA or an RA. So is
Mm-hmm.
it that like when you're applying, so like while applying you also apply for the TA ship or the RA ship, or is it something like that first you pay let's say the tuition fee, then you apply for the TA ship and then like it gets covered up or something like that?
So you're talking about while you are already admitted and you are starting a semester. Is that?
So like uh, how do I frame it? So like let's say that I'm applying for a master's, right? And I
Mhm.
got in at a place. Now the thing is that I'll have to pay the tuition fee, right? Now the thing is, like you mentioned that let's say if I become a TA, so like you
Mhm.
mentioned that once you become a TA, the tuition fees is waived and you also get the stipend that they give you.
Mhm.
So like what I was
Yeah.
asking is it that first you pay the tuition fee, then you get back, or is it like before applying only you applied for a TSF as well, so like you didn't have to give any money at all. So
Right. So yeah, that's a valid concern. I think it so so it actually happened to a friend of mine in Wisconsin. So she like I think she had to pay tuition fee from her own pockets, but then she got a TA offer, and then the university refunded that money back to her. So in that scenario, she actually had to be prepared to like transfer the money from wherever her sources were and make the payment before that offer came in. So that can happen, yes.
But like in general, it also happens that you get the TSA before, like
Yeah, then
beforehand.
you're golden. Yeah, then
Oh,
you're golden. But if you don't, like for
yeah.
whatever reason, if there might be a delay or let's say, so consider this scenario that let's say I approach a professor for an RShip and they don't tell me right away. But in the meanwhile, to like cover my ass, I also apply for a TA-ship. So the university might offer me a TA-ship for a course X, but then in the end, I decide to go with professor and his RShip. So this TA position is empty now, right? So if the department, so the department needs to fill this TA position, so they may transfer this position to a new student. So in that scenario, the new student might get to know late about their TA-ship offer. So you might yeah, so you need to be prepared for those scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
someone else?
yeah, I had heard of it. So
Mhm.
I don't know how normal or conventional this is. So suppose I have a research internship in a university in my third year.
Mhm.
Like, why don't people just apply for a PhD or an MS in the same university as that prof is? Like, have an application in the same university as you have a letter of recommendation. You know.
Yeah, I
So how
mean that's a yeah, I mean like you can definitely do that. No one prohibits you from doing that, right? So if you feel like the professor and you guys are well aligned, then that's definitely a good point in your favor. But one thing which probably you guys should know is how the application process works. So, for like, I mean, we have discussed through that, but like how some of these reviews happen is that let's say you work with Professor X and like you're applying to the same university and the same lab. So, oftentimes the professor will not get to see the application package. Okay, let me backtrace a few steps. So let's say you do really well with the professor and the professor really likes you, right? And they want you to be part of their lab. So in that case, like the process generally looks like that you apply to the university, and then there's a review process happening where like this committee of people look at your application package and like if you are like a good candidate, then you go through your application is sent to your professor, see if they want to admit you, and if they give a heads up, then you're golden, right? So, but in the case that, let's say, the professor likes your work, but for whatever reason, your grades are not good. So, the committee might, I mean, the committee might not like your application as much, and there might be a few like question marks if you will definitely get that admit or not. So, what I'm trying to say here is it is often a function of the university because a lot of universities have this like intermediate review through this application committee, and the application is not actually sent to your professor right away. So you might actually want to talk to your professor and figure out how the university functions, and like if let's say you do a really good job and you want to apply to that professor and you have a recommendation from them, then like what are your chances of getting in? But I mean, I think it should give you a boost if you're applying to the same university and the same professor, assuming everything goes well. Actually, I have. Do I have an example? What happened to that guy? Yeah. So in Wisconsin, I had this friend who was in the master's program, but he was basically there to do a PhD. So he was working with this professor, and then they even had, I think, one or two publications together. But for whatever reason, uh, like I think this guy was transitioning, or his field of interest was shifting a bit, and they were not as aligned with the professors, or the professor wanted to focus on something else. So even after these, like the student and the professor had a couple of publications, the professor was not completely sure if he will get into the PhD program. So, like, it's always possible that initially you had a good rapport during an internship, which is just a 3 month thing. But my friend here had been working with the professor for a year and a half. And like, despite that, he was not sure if the professor will take him as a PhD student because like the professor's interests were like probably changing a bit, or the student was not like probably as he would want his students to be. So like, I mean, there's always a risk factor. Nothing is guaranteed. So like, best to talk to your professors and see what they think about this. Cool. So I think, yeah, I think we can stop now. My throat is a bit sore, and it's like 12:15 a.m. here, so I might want to take a break. So thank you guys for joining. I'm sure you might have like tons of other questions, so just forward them to Tanay or ping me on Messenger, and I can respond to some of you guys. Cool. All right.
Thanks a lot. It was a really great session, and we have a lot to take home and apply what you told in our lives. And like a lot of us now have a clear vision on how to go about applying for higher studies and what all things we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
definitely, and of course, like thanks a lot for organizing this. Uh, I'm sure that it's a very confusing phase for you guys. Like most of us, at least I was very confused, and hope you guys got to learn something out of this. So yeah, cool. All right, take care, you guys. All the best. Stay safe in times of COVID, and have a nice virtual semester. All right, nice talking to you guys. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Goodbye. Guys, the session has officially ended. The meeting recording shall be available and shall be notified to you in what form it's available. Thanks a lot for joining.